Hello, friends, and welcome to the Cinemondo podcast.
With Kathy. No Mark, but we have Whitney.
I'm not Mark.
Way cooler.
I'm totally cooler than Mark.
Don't tell Mark.
He will never see this.
Right.
Yeah, we've got a special guest today. That's always fun when we have a special guest.
Yes.
Because they don't complain and they don't, we don't have to pay them as much. And
we haven't got her bill yet, so we'll
Yeah.
see what happens.
Right. That comes after the show.
And Whitney, why don't you tell us a little bit of your background, like what other podcasts you're on?
Yeah. So I don't have my own podcast because that's too much work. So I love guesting on other podcasts. I've been a guest on Dads from the Crypt, a Tales from the Crypt podcast, but I was on the Halloween episode, so I actually didn't even talk about Tales from the Crypt. I've been on an episode of Plug It Up where we discussed the movie Cam. And I've been on an episode of Films at First Sight where we discussed Paper Moon, which is one of my favorite films ever.
I love that.
So good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah. So you can check those out.
Oh, great. Cool. I was on Dads from the Crypt also. I did one of their Tales from the Crypt. They're so fun.
That was the thing for a while. That show was, there's so many classic episodes of that show. It's really fun to
horror
watch.
genre on TV is so rare. You got to jump in and support when you can. That was one of them.
Yeah.
And it had that vibe. It still had kind of that 80s vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of carried it into when did it end? I think it went through the 90s.
And then they brought it back. And so they had the new one on Shudder. That's actually pretty fun.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I think it is. Yeah. Tales from Crypt, right? Yeah.
One day I'll watch it.
I'm so saturated with horror movies all day long, all the time, because it's all I do that I kind of forget, like, what was it? I don't know.
Well, when I hear that, I think of the 70s film, one of those Amicus anthology films, Tales from the Crypt and Asylum and all those other great, classic 70s bloody horror films. But
in the meantime, we're going to do a movie called The Menu, and it's going to make me hungry. I can tell already. Well, maybe it won't. I don't know. It's that kind of food,
It's going to make you hungry, but the portions are going to be so small, you're never going to get full from eating.
You'll eat till you spend $1,000 or so. You're like, I need another appetizer, please. It's a piece of rice. But this is actually, it's directed by Mark Mylod, who also did a lot of great TV like Games of Thrones and Succession. So he's a really good director. I think it might be one of his first features. And it's also produced by Adam McKay. And it has an incredible cast. And you'll see as we watch this who they are. It's almost better just to leave it as a surprise to see who shows up.
Oh. I've never even heard of this.
Yeah, this is Whitney's idea.
I have no idea what to expect with this.
I got this trailer before Men. So when Kathy hit me up, I was like, this is a fun one, I think, to talk about.
So very fun. Yeah, Men's another one we probably should look at. We did the trailer, but this should be a girls episode for Men.
Definitely.
All right. All right, so I'm getting ready to play it. Are we ready?
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Ready.
Okay. Hair and wardrobe, clear stage, sound speed.
Good evening.
I know all
Welcome
these people.
to Hawthorne. It'll be our pleasure to feed you.
Tonight will be magical.
Over the next few hours, you will ingest fat, salt, protein, and at times entire ecosystems.
We're eating the ocean. We're eating the ocean.
Are you crying?
It's just I find it all very moving.
So it's okay that I'm not as into this as you are. Oh my god.
You shouldn't be here tonight. You, my dear guests, are not the common man. Isn't that right?
So you gonna keep doing that?
What happens inside this room is meaningless compared to what happens outside. We are but a frightened nanosecond. Nature is timeless.
What the hell is going on?
I love you all.
We love you too, Chef!
Any questions?
This is bergamot. I'm getting chef.
Yes, it is.
All right. Okay. Cast incredible.
Yeah.
So many people. Ray Fiennes, Nicholas
Yeah.
Hoult.
Anya
Say his name.
Taylor-Joy. I love her.
She's so
Yeah.
good.
It looks
Judith
pretty
Light.
nuts. It looks like a sort of a slightly surrealistic kind of a horror film where you have where you take something and you sort of push it to its extreme. Something kind of normal, like eating in a restaurant, or like a food club kind of a idea where people get together and have a fine chef and all that. But then take that to the next step, which is sort of Hannibal territory. I think we're going into.
It does seem. Do you think there's a cannibal vibe in here? It's got to be, right? Whenever you're serving super fancy
hint.
food, don't you
Yeah.
ultimately eat people? I mean, that's just what happens.
Yeah.
You know what's interesting is like when I went on I saw it in theaters, and then when we were talking about it in like Slack, someone talked that it's described as like a black comedy horror. And I
Right.
don't get a lot of comedy elements from it. I mean, I do, because obviously like the bergamot part, but
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how they take this, because I'm wondering if it's not as horror-y as they're making it out to be.
Right. Or
Yeah.
maybe it's more than they're making it, because
True.
the trailer kind of makes it seem almost like a upper crust satire kind of.
Yeah.
There was a movie a long time ago called Delicatessen, and there's been a few films that have kind of pushed that idea of. I mean, Hannibal totally pushed that whole idea of the fine dining
that.
thing. What if you take it a step further? Because there's people who eat really bizarre things in other countries, and when you sample these different foods from different cultures, sometimes people from this culture have problems with eating the food from that culture, and where do you draw the line? And
Right.
and the idea of eating a let's just come out and say it, eating a person is kind of taboo in pretty much all of them. So if you're going to make a horror movie about food, that's sort of where you're going to take it, I guess. It's not like it's going to be a horror film where the big reveal at the end is it's like, oh, that's cow intestine,
Right.
Oh,
Been there,
God.
done that.
Yeah,
Right.
they wouldn't have hidden that either. They go, here you
Right.
go, and they dare you to eat it in front of them.
So
Right.
it seems like that's where it's going. It seemed a little like it's probably
Maybe.
where it's going.
It looks almost like there's something bigger afoot. Like I love movies where they bring all these people out to this isolated place. It looks like they're
Right.
almost staying there or something. I love them walking
Yeah.
in with the goats. Like it's this farm to table feeling, and it's this super remote place. And I love that they're all kind of trapped there. Like it seems like there's no getting out of this restaurant.
Right.
Yeah.
There feels like a hostage situation to me. And it almost looks like they're at Nobu in Malibu or something.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, and that door is very interesting to me, because I actually worked in Oliver Peoples in Malibu, and we had that door, and people actually didn't understand how to open the door, because it was one of those doors that just like swung out. And they
Right.
would try to break it. And it's like,
I remember that door. I got some glasses there. It's the
Yeah.
the
That's
glasses
funny.
place, right?
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. It's weird. Yeah, that door really confused people when it
It's
was
heavy.
closed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, please don't break this.
I love it too, because I feel like there's that sort of that pressure on people. They go to this fine restaurant and they're given all this exotic food, and then they're supposed to act like, oh, kind of like what Nicholas Hoult is doing. Oh, this is incredible! It's bringing me to tears.
Right.
Like, you have to be. It's like you're smarter than everyone else for liking it, and
Right.
everyone else is kind of eating it, going, I don't know, but I'm gonna pretend like I like it. And then you have the
You have to
chef
have a
standing there.
refined palate
Exactly.
to understand it. Yeah. And I do. I love bougie food.
Yeah.
Like, I've done some Michelin star dining.
What's
and I
the
always
weirdest
say
thing you ate?
Horse.
Ooh, that's
Oh, I
How
ate
was it
that
prepared?
accidentally when I was in middle school.
Oh my
'Cause
God.
they
Was
it
it
was a
on the
big
street?
scandal in my hometown where they were serving the school lunches, and the hamburgers, it turns out they were made out of horses that had some diseases or something. It
Oh my
was,
God.
yeah.
Oh.
Mine was
That's how I grew
voluntary.
up.
Hers was intentional.
Mine was
Yeah.
intentional. On Mount Fuji in Japan, I had
That's amazing.
horse udon.
Oh,
It was very good.
And I'm sure
Uh,
it was very
Yeah,
tasty.
I'm sure.
I mean,
it's off,
honestly,
but
I mean,
loved it.
horses mean a lot, to people. They're sort of, they've been relegated to the role of being kind of
Right.
heroic, and they serve us, but they're, unfortunately, cows did not get the same. But really,
Right.
is it all that different? I mean,
Right.
They're a different shape, but we've just decided which animals are appropriate to eat and which aren't, even
Absolutely.
though,
for some people, the cow, like Indians, like the cow is sacred. How could you ever eat that? And to some people, it's like, you cannot eat a pig. That's disgusting. And I think I used to be a very picky eater. And then I went out with a chef kind of who was just like, what's the worst that can happen? And I'm like,
that's true.
There, try everything once. So when I get introduced to something that I've never thought I would eat, I want to eat it. So
I think when you travel, if I feel like my wife and I have kind of devoted our lives to traveling as much as we can. And if you're going to travel, she's from Asia, she's from Thailand. So there, we go to places around there. We love to go to Europe. We go to a lot of different places. And if you're going to travel, I would love to be a vegetarian, but it's so difficult.
That's very hard. Yeah, especially when traveling. You go to Asia.
Yeah, especially in Asia. And I think I'm never going to give up fish and seafood. And then I start saying, well, sometimes I really like this and like that. It's so we do like vegetarian days.
Right.
See, I do vegan and then I'll have sushi days. That's pretty much it. But I don't, we have sushi like maybe once every 2 months at the most. I just feel better emotionally not eating animals.
Yeah, I feel that way too. I have to kind of, divert my attention to something else when I think, and that's what I think maybe this movie is touching on, this the idea of what are you eating and where did it come from and how did it get on your plate? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, those restaurants, those what do they call them? The fusion. I don't know if they're called fusion restaurants. They're a specific type who does that, like the foam, and then they create like a shape out of like, oxygenated beef or something. Like it's this weird, like it's almost science
rather than dining.
Right. Yeah, it's not about dining. Yeah.
Right.
And there's a lot of those
pubs or whatever.
Yeah, but gastropubs.
I think it's gastropubs.
That sounds fun, actually. But I love the idea of that because you hear about these places, but you never really go. So I love the idea of turning that, because it does sound kind of scary when you start reading about what the food is. And then I love the idea of let's make a movie about it.
Yeah,
it's a perfect movie.
It reminds me of Pig, if you've seen Pig.
Yes.
And then also like Getting Some Fresh vibes, which also deals with that cannibalism. Spoilers.
And
that was green.
Soylent Green.
But yes, Soylent Green. But it's funny you bring up Fresh too, because there was that moment, and I love that scene where he finally, spoilers, we haven't seen Fresh, but it's not that big a spoiler, where he's going to feed her, and she's like, yeah, I'd love to try it. Kind of trying to get on his good side to try and find a way out. But when he creates this incredibly gourmet dinner using the meat, and he explains why it's so precious and so sacred to eat it, and da 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 da. And I'm like, would I be able to do that? I see scenes like that. I'm like, can I do that?
I've eaten such weird things. Like, I've eaten crickets, and I'm like interested in eating more bugs and crickets, but like
just not interested in eating people.
I don't know about people.
I'm not interested in human meat.
Like you hear all those like true crimes about people that like go and they're like, yeah, you can chop my leg off and feed it to me. And is it legal? Is it not if you give consent? Like,
I know, right?
Like, what is happening? Like, where are we?
I know. And if you're paying a lot of money and you're super rich, you go to a gourmet restaurant, maybe you earned it. You get to eat the human. It looks like they decide who. It looks people are getting stabbed or mutilated. Something's going on in there. I don't know.
If they were going to die anyway, like, might as well feed. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. But they did a great job of that in Hannibal too, where he would. I loved the long scenes of him preparing food, and it was super gourmet. And then you'd find out later, like, it was like I love the Izzy Izzard where they were feeding
Eddie
the leg. Izzy Izzard feeding the leg to him while he was sitting there at the table with his leg cut off, going, oh, which part of me is this? Oh, okay, I'll eat this. I mean, just so twisted, but it all looks so good.
There's the film where you got Ray Liotta, where the Hannibal character, not from the show, is feeding him his own brain, which is right out of the book,
Ooh, yeah, there's some hardcore. So we're going cannibal, but we have no idea if this movie is actually about cannibalism. I assume it is because it's food and it's horror, and what else are you going to do with food except maybe cannibalism?
Well, maybe the producers of this film are watching this podcast right now going,
we'll change the ending.
Oh my God, we should have done that.
Is it obvious what the twist is?
Missed opportunity.
Spoilers, maybe. I don't know. Could be.
It turns out they're eating plant-based meat, and
plant-based meat.
Plant-based
all of this
meat
is
from
vegan.
human cells, like it's like they take human cells and make it and grow it into plant-based meat. That's
Cloning, yeah. I mean, that's an interesting idea. The idea of cloning actual meat, that it's got the real meat and the umami, but it never had a brain, never had a consciousness. So, you know.
No blood, no death.
Yeah.
They're doing that, actually. They're creating that. Sheets of it. And
Yeah.
I'm all for it, except for the health issues are still there. But it's not as bad. At least animals don't have to die. And we don't have to use a ton of resources.
I
to
die
raise them.
eating good food. I'm happy. You know,
It's like, let's build a meat on a sheet. I'm good. It's still good.
I will take candy from a van. Like, let's go.
So you can tell we're very picky about what we eat.
Yeah, seriously.
So there's our reaction for the menu, which looks fascinating, kind of a Knives Out way. I think it was pretty fun.
Seems like maybe it's a good conversation starter anyway. Things about food. You know, everybody's got opinions about food. And
whether they eat humans, everybody's got an opinion about that.
Yeah, like how far would you go? You know, the Alive, that story of the guys in the plane crash in the Andes.
Would you do it?
Oh,
Would you do it? How hungry would you have to be?
It's just protein.
And I look at my dog Darwin, and I think if I died, I would only have to be dead for about 20 seconds before he'd start munching on me. I think
probably
he would jump at the opportunity.
No, he wouldn't.
No, he wouldn't. He loves
would
me.
Not. He loves
10
you.
minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah, at least an hour. I'll give him an hour.
yeah.
Cats, on the other hand, would eat your eyeballs instantly, which is what they do.
Immediately.
Oh yeah. They'd invite all their neighborhood friends over too. It would be a party. He's dead.
Oh my god. Well, we're way over time on this one.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was a good one. You guys let
Got a
us
little
know
dark in
the
this one,
comments.
too.
It did. But let us know in comments what you would do. Would you eat it, this weird food? I don't know. Are you afraid of what this food is? I sure am. I don't know.
I want
But it's got a really good cast. I mean,
It's
would
got
they do
amazing
something
cast.
that's like just sort of, throwaway horror movie gory kind of, there's probably some depth to this thing that we didn't get in the trailer. I'll imagine
Ray
there's some
Fiennes.
sort of, cultural satire, some sort of
It's definitely
commentary
cultural
and-
satire, for
yeah.
sure. Rich people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard to feel
You were
sorry for.
eating the rich for real in this film.
Eat the rich.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it for us today.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks to Whitney for joining us.
Thank you.
Will you come back?
I hope so. If
Yeah,
you'll
she's
have
coming
me
back.
back.
Okay, now you've said it.
There's
Now
no
you're
choice.
recorded saying it. And if you don't come back, we can sue you.
Perfect.
It's on
Take all my
contract.
money.
You're contracted. All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye everybody.
Bye.